Good morning. It's Monday, October the 26th, and this is The Drill. Thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So who is the true conservative? He's the person that has the courage of his convictions and is confident in what he knows. He's the person that understands that culture trumps politics. He's not selfish, but minds his own business. He acts like an adult. He's patriotic and uses common sense. He's judgmental and moralizes. He refuses to speculate and speaks clearly and definitively. He is not afraid to say no. He's open-minded, asking why rather than why not. He's consistent, credible, and influential, not ashamed of his existence, unafraid to learn or correct his mistakes. He is a normal American, and he is better than the socialist. He's a better friend, father, brother, family member, and a better person, period. You have to know that being a true conservative is best, or you are wasting your time. What happens after Donald Trump? All of us Trump supporters think that President Trump is a savior who rescues the country from evildoers by appointing judges and issuing executive orders. 40 years ago, President Reagan was considered a savior too. Fine. But what happens when Trump leaves office? Who then? What then? Do we have to wait 40 more years before we get another savior? If you and I do not change our cultural leftward drift, there will be no more Reagans or Trumps, Ronald, Donald, or otherwise. This is what my podcast is about. You and I influencing our culture so that every Republican candidate is Donald Trump and every Democrat candidate is John F. Kennedy. This country deserves no less. My podcast is short, approximately 5 to 20 minutes long, because shorter podcasts are easier to download and listen to. The biggest socio-political influences in my life are my parents, my teachers, Sir Francis Bacon, John Locke, Sir Isaac Newton, St. Thomas Aquinas, Ayn Rand, and Dr. Mortimer Adler. My podcast is made available through Spreaker and can be heard on iTunes, Spotify, Google, and YouTube. Today, where do we stand? Conservative vocabulary, a new segment called Right or Wrong, good news, bring back, conservative aphorisms, and socialist vocabulary. All that when I come back. Thank you very much. The biggest problem with the news, besides undeclared bias, is the lack of continuity. I decided to take the biggest issues facing the country and report on them daily in order to provide that continuity. Hence, where do we stand? There's 8 days until the election. Judge Barrett's nomination was voted out of Lindsey Graham's committee and will come to a vote in the full Senate today. No news on the monster that's been arraigned for shooting 2 Los Angeles sheriff's deputies. George Soros still isn't dead yet. No law enforcement union has been decertified, and no laws shielding officers from prosecution have yet been repealed. The so-called Patriot Act is still the law of the land. New York Times v. Sullivan continues to encourage news people to be super citizens who can use unnamed sources to slander and defame people at will without fear of consequences. Where's the expose on the Washington Press Corps? Where's nonprofit news? Jill Biden is still the vilest woman in America for encouraging her feeble husband's campaign to continue. The communist flu continues, but the number of new cases is dropping. Governor Newsom has enacted a racist scheme to keep Californians locked down indefinitely. The president has courageously decided to suspend negotiations on the communist flu relief bill until after the election. When I come back, conservative vocabulary. Thank you very much. There's more to being a true conservative than how you vote. If you want to be a true conservative, then you have to act, think, and talk like a true conservative. Hence, conservative vocabulary. Words such as no, go back, acceptance, mind your own business, right, wrong, should, good, bad, evil, reality, certainty, morality, beauty, and polity. These are terms that the left doesn't want to use or want you to use because they are realistic. And now, new segment called Right or Wrong. And this is a segment where I will play a clip from a broadcaster, and then I will analyze their statements to determine whether or not what they were saying was right or wrong. Today's clip is from Dr. Wendy Walsh. She has a PhD in psychology, and the clip is from yesterday's show on KFI AM 640 in Los Angeles.
Hi, AM 640. You have Dr. Wendy Walsh with you. This is the Dr. Wendy Walsh Show. So, my 2 followers I just followed back on Instagram include Barnabas and Cash. Hope I said it right. He's a father of Frenchies. If you like little Frenchies, oh, the cutest doggies in the world. And the other is a jewelry maker I loved, a metal worker. From the Infinite Jewelry is the name of her Instagram. From the Infinite Jewelry. So give him a follow, and give me a follow if you'd like, at Dr. Wendy Walsh. If I like what I see, I'll follow you back and give you a shout out. All right, we are talking about election anxiety. We are 8 days away. Let's talk about what we can do to help reduce what's going on in so many of our stomachs and minds right now. First of all, try not to ruminate. Ruminate is when your thoughts get away from you and they run around in circles in your head. You know, fear of the unknown is so much worse than fear of actual events. And I know you believe you know what's going to happen and you know these actual events. When I hear people letting their fears become words, I'm shocked by what people are imagining are going to happen the day after the election. I'm just like, no, this is not going to happen. By the way, at the end of this, I will tell you my prediction for what I think will happen. So don't ruminate, but instead focus on what you can control. Having a sense of control is very important. That means vote. If you haven't voted yet, go vote. Mail it in, walk it in, or go on the day of with your mask and shield and social distancing, whatever, but do something. Get your ballot. Read about all the props. Read about who's wrote, not just the presidential. You know, there's a ballot with a lot of stuff on it. There's a lot of fun for you to read. If you want to volunteer, you can volunteer and make calls for either getting out the vote or calls for one party or another, but do something. Don't just sit there and worry. And speaking of which, all of our mental health and our anxiety becomes worse when we're not taking care of our physical health. So if you're up late staring at a phone till 2 a.m, your anxiety during the day is going to be exacerbated, there we go, because you're not sleeping well. Are you eating well? Are you limiting your alcohol consumption? Think about what you need to do to take care of that temple that is your body. Now, I can't believe I'm going to say this because I work in media. You really have to limit your media. And when I say limit your media, I mean really choose it wisely. You have to curate. You know, just as your body knows you are what you eat, your mind knows you are what you consume as far as media is concerned. One of my favorite websites is called Adfontes Media, ADFONTES media.com, Adfontes Media, and they are the people that evaluate all the various media outlets and make determinations of how biased they are or not, how original their reporting is, how accurate their reporting is. Heads up, number one tends to be Associated Press and NPR, as far as being right down the middle, not biased, and most accurate. But you can go and look up your favorite media source there and see where it rates. Now, on election day, I want you to make a plan for yourself. What are you going to do? I want you to practice some self-care. I want you to surround yourself, even if it's with Zoom and telephone, with people who are logical, rational, and who love you. Do not whip up a cluster group of fear-based people who are only going to make your fears worse. If you need to, schedule a therapy appointment now. Yes, well, after the Dr. Wendy Walsh Show. Call your therapist and get an appointment for election day or the day after. Now, I have a couple more things I want to say. If your team loses, you have my full permission to grieve. Allow time to feel sad, because if you don't process those feelings, they come out as negative behaviors. So take some time to feel sad. If your team wins, don't celebrate too loudly. You know, I want to remind everybody, we have far more in common than not. Think about
And that was Dr. Walsh from Dr. Wendy Walsh from her show yesterday on KFI AM 640 in Los Angeles. And in this clip, Dr. Walsh is right. She's right when she says that you need to limit your media. If you spend, like I do, almost all day, every day, listening to various right-wing news sources, Rush Limbaugh, etc., you can get overwhelmed. You can get very anxious and nervous, and the way to remedy that is to cut back. Pick and choose which ones you're going to listen to, and put some others aside until you can recuperate a little bit and come back and listen. Too much media can be very stressful, so don't hesitate to tune out when you feel overwhelmed. Now, Dr. Walsh is also wrong. She's wrong when discussing the website adfontes.com. She describes the website as though it were neutral, making neutral observations about various media events. She is, in fact, touting this website as an authority on what is good or bad in media. The website claims that the Associated Press and National Public Radio are right down the middle, unbiased, and accurate. Can you imagine that? National Public Radio and the Associated Press, unbiased? Hogwash. The fact of the matter is that everyone is biased. Everybody at this website has an opinion. They have cultural opinions and political opinions. And so they are biased. That's fine. Declare your bias. So there's no such thing as neutrality. This is all part of the left wing's cult of neutrality. And I approach my show from the standpoint of, and I announce up front that I'm a true conservative, the only true conservative in the United States today. And I promote conservatism. I don't pretend that I'm neutral and I'm going to give you some sort of neutral facts and let you draw your own conclusions. I'm here to promote conservatism and to encourage and persuade people to be conservative and to act conservatively. So, like I said, the fact of the matter is that everyone's biased and there's no such thing as neutrality. There's nothing wrong with being biased, and if news agencies as such as the Associated Press and National Public Radio, would simply state their bias or biases, then they would in fact be much more reliable, ironically. It is when they pretend that they're neutral that they become unreliable. The reason that all of this is important is because neutrality can be a powerful psychological tool or weapon, if you will. If you consider somebody as neutral, your tendency is to automatically trust them and be influenced by them as a source. So have you tune your radars so that when you hear anybody suggesting or saying that they're neutral, right down the middle, etc., then you should immediately be questioning that. And you should be immediately assuming that somebody is trying to put something over on you. So that was Right or Wrong, the segment called Right or Wrong. Every other talk show on the radio spends all of its time grinding its audience with negatives and bad news. This is demoralizing, and the reason that I want to make sure that I include good news. And the good news today is President Trump has solidified another peace treaty. This one is between Sudan and Israel. Ha ha, John Kerry. John Kerry was the one that said there's not going to be any peace treaty with Arab states absent a peace treaty with the Palestinians. Wrong. President Trump was nominated 3 times for a Nobel Peace Prize. And I say this every day, and a lot of the things I'm saying in this particular section I say every day because they don't get enough play. The so-called mainstream media isn't going to report on the Nobel Prizes that the president was nominated for, or anything good that the president does. So I'm going to make sure I overdo it to compensate for that. Don't believe the polls. The only purpose for the polls, as Rush Limbaugh has noted, is to shape reality, to project rather than to reflect, to psychologically demoralize you. The only relevant statistic is that incumbents win re-election 85% of the time. President Trump's judicial picks are beginning to have an effect because the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals struck down a California law banning high-capacity magazines as being in violation of the Second Amendment to the Constitution. Ha ha. The left has its resistance, but we have persistence. Attorney General Barr and Senator Lindsey Graham continue to conduct a thorough investigation into the treacherous behavior of former FBI Director Comey and his henchmen. And I really, really want to hear the sound of those handcuffs click, click, and see the sight of Mr. Comey being frog-marched out of his house to a waiting squad car while his mommy weeps her eyes out. The mayor of Los Angeles and the LAPD have shown respect for property rights and the rule of law for once by announcing dozens of arrests and ongoing pursuit of suspects from summer rioting. The Michigan Attorney General announced a couple of weeks ago that she will no longer enforce the governor's executive orders by criminal prosecution. Ha ha to you, Governor Whitmer. The state of Florida has the courage to lift all coronavirus restrictions, and businesses and schools are reopening. Hooray for the governor of Florida. Grocery store shelves are full again. This means that things are getting back to normal, real normal. Not new normal, not anarchist normal, not socialist normal. Nothing can stop Rush Limbaugh, not the left, nor cancer. And Amazon stock is up. Next up, how a true conservative can win. Thank you. So people call the radio talk shows, call Rush Limbaugh, and they ask, what can we do? And so that's what this segment is all about. What can a true conservative do? Or in other words, how can a true conservative win? You can win, number one, by not doing the left's work for it. If the left is going to win, make them earn it. Next up, bring back. Thank you. As conservatives, we make the presumption for the status quo and change only when there's an obvious or prima facie case for change. That's what being a conservative is all about. However, many of the changes that our civilization has seen are not necessary, but gratuitous. They're left-wing changes that have been foisted upon us. The following is a list of ideas, concepts, abstractions that should not have been changed, and so they should be brought back. Bring back outlaws. If you're going to flaunt the law, you're going to go out and burn buildings down, you're going to act like a terrorist, there's no reason you should be getting the protection of the law. Bring back single-income households. Integration as opposed to diversity. Parenting, and along with it, corporal punishment. You're not their friend, you're their mom and dad. The primacy of existence. Certainty of knowledge, and universal rights and wrongs. Bring back principled behavior, masculinity and femininity, policing as represented by the TV series Adam 12, the Democrat Party of John F. Kennedy, the gold standard, pre-HMO medical care, nonprofit news, civil service, the term stupid question, arguments and fights, the cultural influence of the church and the Boy Scouts. Bring back the influence of social organizations such as the Lions Club and the Rotary Club. Bring back bowling. Bring back smart. Be of good cheer. The universe is benevolent and success is to be expected. Therefore, the left has no authority, no power, and they can't win. Think about it. Conservative aphorisms. Why? Who asked you? Who cares? Who is we? Are you sure? How do you know? No, you do not understand. No, you are not listening. You're right. I don't care. You know you're not a leader or a change agent. Who died and left you in charge? And my personal favorite, get off of my lawn. Next up, how did we get here? Well, as a matter of fact, we're going to go right to socialist vocabulary. Since nobody wears uniform, how do you identify the socialists in your midst? By their vocabulary, by how they speak. Socialist vocabulary includes such words as stakeholders, Latinx, why not, you're not listening, you don't understand, don't you care, we, empower, going forward, mansplaining, politically correct, supportive, hegemony, oppression, down for the struggle, maybe, resistance, leadership, consensus, will, understand, opinion, curiosity, what works, and feelings. Back in a minute. Thank you. Who is the socialist? He's the man that seeks consensus rather than develop his own opinions. He is subjective, petty, and small, taking everything in life personally. He's outrageous, boring, and rude. He pretends to be a leader and a change agent. He pretends to be your friend. He is sly, cunning, and deceptive. He dresses, acts, and speaks like a slob. He is informal and terminally unique. He's childish and pretends that he knows nothing. He's pragmatic, has no conscience, and pretends that might makes right and that the ends justify the means. He acts randomly and rationalizes his behavior. Deterministic, blaming others for his mistakes. Skeptical, demanding that others solve his problems. His unreasonableness and irresponsibility make him a bad role model and a bad father, brother, family member, friend, and a bad person, period. So if you think that you should be friends with a socialist, think again. That concludes another episode of The Drill. Be smart, be honest, be beautiful, and always ask yourself, what is real, how do I know, and what should I do about it? I'm Ron, and that's The Drill.